Hey everyone, and welcome to my review of the Vinson Smart 2-Seater Power Recliner, or the Eiger Smart 2-Seat Power Sofa, which is exactly the same product, just with a slightly different finish to the fabric and the cushion design. Now, if you're into your tech, your movies, or just looking for something modern, comfortable, and stylish, these are a great addition to any living room, theater room, or studio, and have a range of pretty cool features. I'll go over these in more detail in just a moment, but as a brief overview, these are pocket-sprung foam and fiber interior cushions, so they are super comfortable. They have a double recliner function on each seat, so you can adjust the headrest and the foot or body rests independently. It has a pair of built-in Bluetooth speakers, LED cup chillers, as well as a wireless charging dock, all of which I'll be testing in more detail shortly. It has a huge central storage unit which has additional power sockets and USB ports inside, as well as a hidden drawer at the bottom for even more available storage. Now, my fear was that some of these features may be a bit gimmicky and not really useful for everyday use, and so we'll put these to the test shortly in the review, and hopefully this will help you make up your own mind about whether this is the right sofa for you. Now, if you find this review useful, please do give it a like, as it really helps me out, and if you have any questions at all, or if there's anything that I didn't answer, I'm very active here on YouTube, so leave a question in the comments down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. To start things off, I just want to clear up a few things. I first saw this sofa in DFS here in the UK, and it was retailing for just over £2,000 as of April 2023. In addition to that, delivery was £100 on top of that, and the lead-in time was around 6 to 8 weeks. Now, DFS weren't interested in offering any sort of discount at all, and so I came home and looked online and found a retailer called Dante Furniture. Now, they have a physical store based in Burnley, but they also serve the whole of the UK via their website. Now, Dante were selling the exact same sofa, the Vinson, but at a much cheaper price of £1,475, which actually came to £1,425 as they had a £50 voucher when you signed up for their email newsletter. That also included free delivery, and so clearly it was the much better deal to go for. The only difference being that the one stocked by Dante is very slightly lighter in color. These days, retailers will often have very slight differences between products from store to store, so that they are technically not in direct competition with each other, so you can't ask them to price match, as they are technically not the same product, even though they are exactly the same thing, made by the same company, just with a very slight difference in design. But the Vinson via Dante Furniture still had a waiting time of around 5 weeks, but they did have an alternative available called the Eiger, which was available for delivery within 3 days, which in the world of sofas is pretty amazing. It's normally weeks. As you can see, it's exactly the same sofa. It's the same frame, the same skeleton underneath, just with a slightly different design to the cushioning. Now, I wanted to check this with the factory that makes them, and they confirmed that they are all exactly the same sofas, just with a different skin, so to speak. So I have the Eiger, however, this is exactly the same product as the Vinson, apart from a slightly different cushion design. Now let's jump into the review and start off with the seats, or the cushions themselves. As I mentioned earlier, these are foam and fiber filled, so it's a combination fill for good firm support, but incredibly comfortable too. Having used them daily for about 2 or 3 months now, I've noticed absolutely no flattening or compression in the cushions. They've held their shape perfectly. The stitching is one of the nicest features in my opinion. It's incredibly strong and thick, and it really adds a premium feel to the whole set. I wouldn't have any fears at all about this stitching coming away, and overall I think the sofa looks incredibly well made. The material itself is a kind of suede-like fabric, but I don't think it's actually suede. It has a slightly leather-like look to it from a distance, but you don't get any of that sweatiness or stickiness that leather tends to give. But overall, they're incredibly comfortable to sit on, and the fabric feels really, really nice. Now, moving on to the recliners, the highlight feature of the sofas. Again, these are absolutely fantastic and are incredibly comfortable. As you can see, they recline almost to a flat position if you want to go that far back. But the headrest is also independently controlled, so you really can get yourself super comfortable depending on how you'd like to sit. The recliners are controlled by touch buttons on the central control unit. You have the footrest / full chair recline here, and you have the headrest control here. You can also use this lock button to lock the controls so that you don't accidentally press anything when you're grabbing a drink or something, and the little red light here just lets you know that the lock is on, and you press it again to unlock. Now you can see here I have my sofa almost against the back of the wall, and so one of the questions I had before I purchased was in terms of how much space you need to leave behind the sofa. So how big a gap do you need to leave for the sofa to be able to fully recline? And because the seat kind of shifts forward as it goes down, it's not quite as much as you'd think. You can see my fist measurement here, which is just over 10 centimeters, so really not bad at all if you're looking to have these up close to a wall without sticking out away from the wall too much. Now, staying with the center console, next we have the first of one of the more potentially gimmicky features, the drinks chillers. So to turn them on, you press this button here, which first turns on the main LED ring, and then on a second press activates the cooling feature. And with this comes one of the first issues I found, which is the noise. Now, once the coolers are turned on, there is a fairly loud hum. It's almost like a fan that turns on. And while you can certainly feel the inside of the cooler getting pretty cold, the noise really is something to consider. Just take a listen to this. I mean, if you were watching some sports or a loud action movie, you're probably not going to notice it at all. However, if you're watching something more laid back, a film with a lot of dialogue, or if you're just relaxing in the chair with a book or something, then the buzzing probably is going to be pretty annoying. And it's a little bit like a ticking clock in that once you notice it, you really can't unhear it anymore. That being said, even without the cooling feature being on, these still work really well as just a normal drinks holder, and it means you can comfortably keep your beverages around without the worry of them getting knocked over or spilling onto your brand new couch. Now, in terms of how well these coolers work at keeping your drinks cool, I'm going to run a little experiment. I have 2 cans of Pepsi here, both of which have come straight from the fridge. I'm going to put each into a cooler, turning one of the coolers on and leaving the other one off. And I'll check back in 2 hours to see what the final temperature difference is, which will hopefully help you decide if they might be worth using or not. So stay tuned and we'll check back in on these in a few moments. So in addition to the cup holders, we have a central storage unit. Now this is really deep and allows for plenty of storage for snacks, drinks, TV remotes, etc. I mean, if you found the right size tub, you could even fill it with ice and have your drinks chilled in that way if the coolers are a little too loud for you. The storage unit also has 2 UK plug adapters, which is a really nice touch, as well as 2 USB ports. Now, these could be really useful for plugging in a laptop, a tablet, etc., or another wired phone charger if there are 2 of you using the sofa, or if your own device doesn't support wireless charging. There's also another deceptively large storage drawer hidden at the bottom. You can see my hand there as a size reference. Again, you can never have too much storage, so this is always a welcome feature. It's perfect for storing video games, snacks, magazines, books, your iPad, or whatever it might be. And the last thing to look at on the central console is the wireless charging pad. Now, this is a really nice touch and it's one of my favorite features. As with most wireless charging pads, it only supports standard charging speeds rather than lightning or super fast charging, but it's still a really nice feature to have, and it means that your phone is always getting a little top up when you are using the sofa, and it just gives you a really nice place to sort of have your phone while you're sat there, so it's accessible, but it's being charged at the same time. I have the Samsung Z Flip 4, which fits really nicely when folded and charges without any issues, even through a case. However, as you can see here using a larger phone, this one is the Galaxy S9, due to the charging pad's proximity to the lid of the storage unit, you may find that a larger phone doesn't fit quite so well. And also because the charging pad is kind of sunken in slightly to the console, you can see here that a longer phone kind of
bridges itself over the pad using either side of the armrest on the console, which means it's not laid completely flat on the charging pad, and so that, combined with the extra few millimeters created from having a case on, means that you may find a larger phone with a case a little fiddly in terms of finding that sweet spot. If I use that, I have to take the case off, and so again, that's just something to consider. But the charging pad is a really nice feature, one of my favorites, and I think it looks great too. On to the Bluetooth speakers now. So I work as a voice actor and an audio producer, so I am a self-confessed audiophile. So I knew before I bought this that I was never going to use the built-in speakers. I have high-end studio monitors and a whole range of audio equipment in here, so I have absolutely no use for these. And as predicted, the sound quality is pretty terrible. If you like your audio. For those who aren't necessarily too fussed about audio quality, they're probably fine for playing music through at a party or something, though I kind of feel like 95% of people are already going to have some form of audio equipment in the room already, and so I'm not entirely sure what the point of these are, but that being said, we'll go ahead and test them anyway. So bearing in mind I recorded the following audio with my phone, so it's not the fairest of comparisons, but what I'll do is I'll play a random piece of stock music so I don't get dinged by YouTube for copyright, and I'll play it first through the sofa speakers and then again through my studio monitors. And take a look at the text on the screen, which will let you know which one is coming through. Let's take a listen. Like I said, that's all recorded from a mobile phone, so it's not the best in terms of comparison, but as you can hear, the speakers on the sofa sound muddy, they are far too bassy, and just generally pretty awful. In fact, even the audio quality from my Amazon Alexa speakers is far superior to this, but I knew I'd never be using them when I bought it, and so it's not an issue for me. If you are planning on using them though, I'm not too sure why you would be, but just be warned, they are pretty bad. So that pretty much covers the main features. Now, before we get back to finish off with the cooling test, just one other issue that slightly bothers me is the way the cup holders and charging pad is so tightly embedded in the fabric, which, don't get me wrong, is a good thing, but it just means that crumbs and bits of dirt and stuff can get stuck between the frame and the fabric, as you can see here. And even with like the nozzle end of a Hoover, it can be pretty difficult and irritating to clean out, to really get in there. They do get jammed in there quite tightly, so not a big issue, but it's just something else to bear in mind. Okay, so to finish off, let's come back to the cooling test. So it's been a full 2 hours, which, by the way, is the limit on these things. So after 2 hours, the cooler will switch itself off. But it's been just under 2 hours, and the final temperatures are as follows. The chilled can is showing 17.2 degrees Celsius, while the non-chilled can is at 21.9 degrees C. So that's a difference of 4.7 degrees C after 2 hours. So it's not a huge amount by anyone's standards, but it's certainly a noticeable difference when tasting, even if only slightly. That being said, it's never going to take me more than 2 hours to drink a single can. And so for me, bearing in mind the noise generated, it's not really worth using the cooling feature. But the cup holders themselves still look great and have a lot of use just as generic cup holders, so it's not all bad. One other thing I didn't mention earlier is that it's kind of irritating that to use the cooling feature, the LED ring has to be on, which on top of the noise from the coolers can be pretty distracting, especially if you're watching something with the lights off. It would be nice to have the option to turn these off completely, but again, it's certainly not a deal breaker for me. So overall, I'm really pleased with the sofa. It was a fantastic price from Dante with super fast delivery, and I think it's been a very worthwhile investment. Incredibly comfortable, looks fantastic. A couple of gimmicky features, but they're there if you want to use them. But even without them, just the recliner and the comfort of the sofa and how it looks, I think overall make a really great deal. As I said before, feel free to ask any questions if I've missed anything, and I'll do my best to get back to all of them. And if you found this review useful, please do give it a like. It really helps me out, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Catch you later.